I thought about it, and I can't say I can't.
Well, welcome to Kent County Levy Court combined meeting. This evening is Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. We're holding the meeting at 555 Bay Road, Dover, Delaware, at Levy Court Chambers, room 203. Before we officially open the meeting, I'll turn it over to the county administrator who will explain how those that would like to join us on phone can do so and those on WebEx.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. This meeting of Levy Court is being offered to guests via the internet using the WebEx platform. And if we have guests on the internet, if you're using a mobile phone, we're asking that you keep your device on mute, and at the appropriate time through the meeting when there's opportunity for public comment, you can press *3 on your mobile phone, and that will raise an electronic hand. We'll be able to recognize you and bring you into the room. All public comments are to be preceded by stating your name and address for the record. We have no public hearing items on tonight, so there will be no need to swear guests in. If you're on a desktop or a laptop, the WebEx screen has a raise hand icon at the bottom, and we ask that you activate that at the appropriate time to make public comments as well, and otherwise keep your device on mute. This is a business meeting and committee meeting of Levy Court. As such, we're following the adopted rules of procedure for business meetings and committee meetings that Levy Court has enacted, along with the Mason's Rules of Order. Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll call the business meeting to order. And I will ask Commissioner Howe to lead us in the invocation. Commissioner Masson lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And a moment of silence for our troops and first responders. Commissioner Sweeney. All rise, please.
Heavenly Father, we recognize your presence tonight and ask for your blessings and guidance in all of our proceedings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our military, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, and other first responders who have lost their lives in the line of duty, protecting life and home or fighting for our freedoms. In addition, we honor all first responders and medical staff who have succumbed to COVID-19 virus complications contracted through close interaction with infected patients, losing their lives caring for others. Nationally and right here in Delaware, we're experiencing a shortage of hospital beds due to an increase in COVID, flu, and RSV cases, so please keep that in mind. Please remember all these individuals who died in the line of duty, as well as keeping their families in your thoughts and prayers during this holiday season as they deal with the loss of their loved ones. Deputy Sheriff Jose De Leon from the Warren County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina, Border Patrol Agent Raul Gonzalez from the Customs and Border Protection in McAllen, Texas, Reserve Deputy Brad Miller from Maury County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee, and firefighter Kurt Kielhofer from the Mapleton Fire Department in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Ms. Tanaka, can we have roll call, please? Determine quorum.
Mr. Angel?
Present.
Mr. Hall?
Present.
Mr. Howell?
Here.
Mrs. Maston?
Present.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Pepper?
Here.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 present.
Thank you. We do have quorum. As most of you know, we lost Commissioner Buxton to the state Senate. So from swearing in, when he was sworn in on November 8th, from then until the 3rd of January, we'll be functioning with 6 commissioners. But we do have a quorum this evening. Need a motion on adoption of this evening's agenda.
Mr. President, before we do that, we need to remove the CWA off of the agenda. It'll be put on another time frame as part of the agenda tonight.
Okay, do we have a date or
12:20 is what it's been suggested. They were supposed to vote today, and they didn't have, I guess, enough time.
Okay, we'll remove that and move that to the 20th of this month. Any other?
Make a motion to approve with that amendment.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Angel, second by Commissioner Masson to approve this evening's agenda with one amendment. Any questions? If not, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas.
Thank you. Do we have any introductions this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have one new employee to introduce tonight, and that honor goes to Finance Director Susan Durham. Susan?
Good evening, everybody. Okay, I want to introduce Kristen Mashman. She was hired as an accountant in the accounting section on November 1st. Most recently, she worked as a tax analyst for the Internal Revenue Service in New York. That's where President Pepper's wife retired from. IRS. Responsible for analyzing all aspects of business and self-employed tax returns. Prior to that, she worked as a financial analyst, payroll manager for Apabo Health Chiropractic. She holds bachelor's in finance and master's of business administration degrees from Bryant University in Rhode Island. Kristen resides in Commissioner Sweeney's and Pepper's districts, and she's been a great asset already. She brings a lot of life to the party. So we're happy to have her. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you to the Levy Court for the opportunity. Especially thank you to Susan. I knew the first day I met Susan, I wanted her to be a mentor in my career. It was my interview, so I thank you for that. So my wish came true. And I've only been here a little under 2 months, but it has been nothing but a joyous time. I mean, the department I'm in is just fantastic. So I thank you again for this wonderful opportunity.
Mr. Sweeney.
Kristen, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Going from healthcare to the county is going to be a huge leap. I've got this pain right here in my back that maybe you can help with.
I could crack it.
Welcome aboard and good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, we're working towards getting deep in the budget process, so we'll see how much partying you do with that.
Well, my quad is very quiet, so I've kind of livened it up a little bit, which is a good thing. So,
Well, welcome aboard. Welcome to the family.
thank you so
Look
much.
forward to you spending a long career here.
I do too.
Best of luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't believe we have any other introductions this evening. This time we're recessed to committee meetings. Call the committee meetings to order. We do have 6 commissioners present for the committee meetings. The first item on the agenda is Community Services Committee. Commissioner Sweeney is the chair. I'll turn it over to you, sir, and run the committee.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rigby, are you going to come down and join us with Mr.? And we also have with us Lamar Gunn from Field of Dreams, going to give us an update, and we will have some decisions to make in the business meeting concerning maintenance of the fields. He's brought me a gift. Look.
I wish.
I have to claim that.
That's worth the penalty, right?
I've already explained to Mr. Gunn that that is not a Steeler helmet because the Steeler professional helmets only have the logo on one side. But that's a child's, so. I'm going to turn this over to Mike, and Mike can tell us what we're here to talk about, and then I'm sure, Lamar, we're going to give you an opportunity to bring us up to date.
Okay. So as everyone knows, at the park maintenance department takes care of the Field of Dreams as far as mowing only. Mr. Gunn, who represents the Field of Dreams, runs his programs at that facility. So the agreement was through the lease, I guess, is that our park staff would take care of that through the calendar year 2022, revisit at this point in time, and then see what everybody's decision is on whether or not we continue the service. There's a couple of motions based on Jeremy Shepard. One is to continue it through calendar year 2023. If you guys decide to redig on the service, then that's your decision. Otherwise, we'll continue it again through calendar year 2023 and revisit it next year, December of 2023. So, but as far as what I'm here to represent is that Kent County Park staff actually just mows the facility, no other service other than just mowing it. So.
Thank you. Any questions for Mike before we turn it over to Mr. Gunn? Omar, we welcome you here. We know what you're doing out there, and it's a great thing. Do you want to? I'll turn the mic over to you and let you give us an update, please.
Fantastic. Well, first off, I want to thank the Levy Court, Mike, Senator Buxton, of course, President Pepper, Jody, each and every one of you. It's been an interesting year at the Field of Dreams. Mike here as well, and Jeremy, and all the help that they've given us. We've had a tremendous experience over this past year out there with the kids. Kids that I would say would not normally have a safe place to recreate because of possibly finances or transportation. And I did drive my Jeep here just so you can see how many round trips and beatings it's taken over the last, I guess, 8 months, picking kids up from Manchester and Simon Circle. And yeah, so my next ask is going to probably be for a van or a bus from the county. No, I'm not joking. It's quite the beating on a Jeep Wrangler. But no, the maintenance side of things, if we could just get that out of the way first, I guess, it's been a big help. There's no way that I could have made it without the county's help with the grass. No way at all. So that I'm very appreciative of that. Moving from that, and I would definitely also appreciate any affirmative or positive motion in support of carrying that forward, so we know. But as many of you probably are aware, you've read the paper, you might get Lacrosse magazine nationally. You know, the first event that we had was the Sankofa Lacrosse Clinic. Now, Sankofa is an African term to go forth and retrieve that which has been forgotten. So we had the USA Lacrosse Sankofa Lacrosse Clinic, the first time ever something like that's happened here. We had 200 kids, black and brown kids, exposed for the first time ever to the sport of lacrosse. 2 of our kids have gone on to Syracuse University on full lacrosse scholarships, 2 African-American females from right here in Dover. And many kids, for the first time ever playing lacrosse, have excelled at the sport and have received all types of honors statewide. Next, we went on, we had a soccer tournament, or not tournament, but we had the soccer skills and drills clinic. We held that for probably, I think, about 2 months. We held a 7-on-7 clinic, which is this new type of football. It's not flag, it's not tackle, it's just guys running around without pads and two-hand touch, I guess, but it's high level, and it's something that the high schools are doing now, and we probably had a little over 1,000 people attend that in the winter. We started an NFL flag franchise and had a pretty good success with that. A little over 100 kids participated. Following up on that, I think this was a big one I'm pretty sure you heard about or read about, but that was our back-to-school cruise for kids in the community. And strangely enough, that meeting that I attended when we were setting up the lease that started, I think it started on one night, and then it ended the next morning somehow. So it was a 2-day meeting. I don't know if you remember it, but it was quite long. I had a chance to meet a gentleman from Discover Bank, and he was here pitching like a loan process through the county or so forth, but he had to stay for my presentation like I had to stay for his. We wind up, connecting, and Discover's been a big partner of ours with trying to help with the things we're doing with the kids. So anyway, had the back to school cruise, which fits into the financial literacy component that I told you all about at the beginning of the year, which is my focus is with sports is to teach kids not really just to wear Nike, but to own Nike. So all of the kids that come through our sports program, one, have a credit union account, and two, have an investment account. All right, so instead of giving out awards and trophies and so forth, we give kids shares of stock. And that's my way of trying to break this cycle of poverty. Something different, kids and families seem to like it a lot. We'll keep that going, but Discover's been a big help with that as well. Next, we moved into tackle football, and that was a huge lift, starting a tackle program without any access to helmets. So I had to rob Peter and pay Paul and all types of things from Virginia to New York to scrounge up 40 helmets. Because, with COVID, no one in the country could get access to a helmet. And my commitment, which I share with you guys, was to change how football is played by focusing on the helmet. I think you know that I'm a Division I college football official. I retired from that to run the Field of Dreams and the Dream Association. But what I saw on the field, shocks my conscience as to, what athletes go through, and seeing a quarterback on the ground suffering from a hit and a concussion, it can do something to you when you're seeing it just a couple of feet away versus what you guys see on TV. So my commitment is to youth and changing how the game is played. So right here in Kent County, as I promised you, we became the first youth football team in the country to make available a Riddell Speed Flex helmet with Insight. Now what that means, and Jody, Commissioner Jody, this helmet is better than the one that the Steelers wear. The NFL team, this helmet right here is better than the one that they wear. They wear the same helmet, which is a Speed Flex helmet, but their helmets don't include the batteries and all the Wi-Fi that this helmet does. This helmet tells me that little Johnny was involved in a hit that might be a Category 4 and he needs to come out of the game. It buzzes me. And as you know, youth sports games don't usually have trainers on the sideline. It's a kid on the ground saying he has a headache, he's hurt. What happens, and I'm guilty of this for coaching 20 years, we let them sit down for a few plays and we send them back in. A 10-year-old with a concussion, but we don't know. That was the past. Now, what we have is these helmets deliver me data every week as to how Johnny's tackling in practice and how to correct anything that might, cause some sort of damage down the road. I get a spreadsheet of the entire team as to what's happening. This is the new wave in technology. So I'm sure you can imagine that that's not cheap, right? But that's the commitment that I have to kids in the community to change the game. All right, so personally, I've funded this. 95% of the kids that I have don't pay league fees. They don't have a dime to pay. They don't have transportation. So what do? Leave them in the hood? Or do we find a solution? I'm happy to say that the Dream Association has been finding solutions. And I'm able to invest in helmets and kids because you do your part as well. So the next thing that has come up is we're committed to having our kids clean up the community. So looking for resources, but our kids have volunteered to help seniors throughout Kent County who might have leaves or things like that, and they can't get out. The Dream Association kids have backpack blowers, bags, gloves donated through the Housing Authority to go out and clean up communities and help seniors in need. What's going on right now is our Christmas program, which is a vision board program. Kids throughout Kent County can win $500 from just dreaming on paper, creating a vision board. And if you haven't done so yet,
please join the Field of Dreams Facebook page, where you can see all the things that we've been doing over the past year, but you can see the videos of the kids and their vision boards and how they talk about, you know, being an astronaut or playing in the NFL or owning stock, you know, things that help them rise far above their current predicament. So that's kind of why I do this. I love those types of moments. So join that group. I'd love to see you. I know you'll probably have some questions for me, but before you blow me up, I'll probably give you these gifts because I might want to keep them after the questions, but I'll hand these out first, right? And what I have is just basically, you know, this was one of our first and last medals, which on one side it has DREAM, and we remember what DREAM represents, which is Delaware Recreation, Education, Athletics, and Mentoring. And on the back, there's a quote that says, "There's greatness in you. Dream big and change the world." So, something I came up with. But I have one of these for each one of you. I guess we could hand them out now. Or
Laura will take them from you. So are there any questions for Mr. Gunn?
Mr. Singh, how much are the helmets, Mr. Gunn?
each one of these helmets retail for about a little under $1,000.
Each one?
Each one.
Wow.
I have 40. And in full disclosure, 19 were donated by Coach Knapp at Dover High from Wesley College's program. They were older helmets. Riddell made us the first team out of the entire country to receive helmets about 6 weeks ago. This is a 2023 helmet as it's stamped on the back. They released them to us so our kids could play just a few games in the season because we didn't have the equipment, legal equipment to play. So,
well, each piece of equipment when I was with Dover High School football has an expiration date when you got to change it. What's the expiration date on that one?
And Mike could tell you this, but the inception date on this is 2023. So this helmet is good to 2033, but it's an inside helmet, so you have to change the batteries and so forth, which, by the way, the inside of the helmet lights up and so forth there's wires and batteries on the inside to let you know that it's active. I mean, the kids love that, but it's a little heavier, but the safety that it brings versus not having that is big. And we get kids from other programs that are using helmets that are 2010 and older, which means that they're illegal. But most football played throughout the state and the region, there's kids use whatever equipment that they can get their hands on. And one team in particular does not even issue helmets anymore because of the requirement for the certification each year. It's expensive. So you had a $1,000 helmet, and then to have this helmet recertified every year is $100. It's a big expense, but with 120 kids in the program projected next year for a travel team, yeah, still got a little bit more work to do.
So, Mr. Gunn, I very much appreciate the update. I ride by there when you have had tournaments on the weekends, and we have had some issues out there. Yeah. Mr. Gunn was contacted, was right out there within minutes, I think, resolving the issues. So I appreciate that too, because that does reflect on the county, because everybody goes back and gets on their mapping and says, oh, it belongs to the county and what's going on. So I appreciate you responding so quickly. The other thing we need to talk about is maintenance going forward. So this is the first year. Jeremy has estimated that it was about 4.5 hours a week for 7 months, totaling $3,700 for maintenance. Jeremy's recommendation is to do it for the next season, next year, 2023 summer, and then end it after that. Just tell us how you feel about the benefit that you're getting from the county of doing the maintenance. Is it helping out a lot?
Well, I'll say it again. The 2,500 plus kids that recreate now at the Field of Dreams would not be there if the county was not cutting the grass. So $3,700 investment over a year, 2,500 kids impacted with positive recreation and mentoring as well. I also forgot to mention the Father's Day camping out at the Field of Dreams under the stars. That was a big one. So I think the county should probably take this on, and I know this might shock you a bit, but in perpetuity, because I think it's pretty clear how much I put into this. At the end of the day, especially if some grants and other things go their way, you can see that there has been a significant improvement just in less than a year, not just with me personally by hand putting in a new fence, removing the old one and putting in a new one, putting in the goalpost myself, paying for them, all those different things that have done to upgrade the property from a financial point. But the return on investment that you get from the kids, I think $3,700, even if it were $10,000 in my opinion, I believe would be a tremendous or smart investment for the county with what you're getting from the Field of Dreams. So I need the county's help in making a decision, and maybe it can happen by motion or what have you, but I think definitely for the next year, if you want to revisit it next year, but I personally believe that it's something that you should do to help the county, to help all of us, but mainly help the kids.
Thanks. Do you have any paid employees?
Zero.
All volunteers?
All volunteers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My better half back there is wondering when we're going to get paid employees and get me home more often.
She doesn't need anything. She's good. Sorry, Danielle.
Yeah, nah. Danielle's my sister now. My wife's back there.
Oh.
No.
So I don't have a problem with moving this forward for at least 1 year, and to revisit. I'd like to revisit it only because of the budgetary issues going forward. But next year in December, we'll do this again. Gives us an opportunity to see you, to get an update with what's going on. Next year, bring a lacrosse stick. I'm sure there's some lacrosse players up here. Does anybody else have any questions? Mr. Pettimonge?
Not a question, really, a comment. First of all, Mr. Gunn's good to see you again.
Likewise.
You know, just a reminder that the county secured this property many years ago, 2005 actually. 17 acres of land was transferred to the county in exchange for sanitary sewer for the Verona Woods subdivision. And that was at a time when the county code allowed for extension of sewer outside the growth zone if there was some extraordinary benefit to the county. And the Levy Court at the time felt that the 17 acres met that test. And so they accepted it. In exchange, they established a sewer district to support the Verona Woods subdivision. Then we know what happened. The recession hit. Verona got put on ice for many years, but now it's being developed. But that's how the county ended up with this 17 acres. And there was another project just north of it that was proposing an additional 30-plus acres. And the staff at the time saw this as a recreation corridor. We were going to end up with substantial land holdings. In fact, former director of community services had a plan for the recreation center, which is on New Burton Road, to be built out on the Dilsheimer property on Dykes Branch Road. So that didn't happen. But where am I going with this? The point is the county owns the property, and it was acquired for recreational purposes. Whether we're running a program there or someone else is running it, it's getting used for recreation. If it was our own program, we'd be cutting the grass. And we do a lot of grants to organizations, and this could be like an in-kind grant to a viable recreational purpose. So personally, I don't have a concern with it. I think it's probably, as Mr. Gunn mentioned, a good investment for the county because we're getting people who are real concerned about young people, giving them an outlet and learning some good life lessons on the playing field. And so who may not have that chance any other way. So I'm off my soapbox. I just wanted to say that. And again, thank you for what you're doing out there. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Commissioner Angel.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. A couple things. First of all, I support our military. I support our seniors, our homeless, and our kids. When I was on the school board, all our school kids were supported, and I actually worked with the kids and all did their videos, whatever, for their talents of showing what they could do. Long story short, what I wanted to ask you is, we partner with the Girls and Boys Club to build a gym. Have you talked to the Boys and Girls Club about maybe getting some extra funding help with you, with the amount of money you're going to need to work with alongside them?
The Boys and Girls Club, that's a great question. The Boys and Girls Club, I have communicated with them about a partnership going forward because they like the Camp Wall Street that we run, as they would like to bring that to their kids. As far as funding and partnerships there, I understand there's some sort of dynamic between the Boys and Girls Club and the county. I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of connection between the county and the Boys and Girls Club. I don't know. But I would love to partner with any organization in the community to add value to what they're doing and also to what we're doing over at the Dream Association and Field of Dreams. But keep in mind, I'm a investment guy, right? Run a private wealth management practice. I'm a stockbroker. I'm not a big grants guy or how these partnerships work, but you know, it's people like Mike and Paul, our Commissioner Hertz here, and Buxton, and you guys really have that know-how and experience. So if you think, Commissioner Angel, that there's some potential, I'll explore it, of course, because yes, there's going to be some big needs in order to continue to grow the program and change lives.
Since that is in my district and Mr. Pepper's district, as a commissioner at large, I'll get with you later about some fundraising ideas and some things. But my only concern is making sure that through our agreement that the trash and everything is cleaned up, because you had a great successful event. Boy, did I get the calls.
Well, and if I could, I'll tell you.
But I just want, and if you need help, let me know. I'll see what I can do too, or maybe even ask the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, now that they're combined, maybe have them come out and help clean up as for community service, for the merit badges, something just to help bring the community together, just to give you some insight.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you and I appreciate that. I bet you there was no one more pissed than me when I came out there, because I worked pretty hard out there. You guys cut the grass. Could we also add to that motion that I might get some help edging, right? Because every weekend, that's what I do. It's a lot of property to weed whack and edge, but I do it myself. But the tournament that we held for kids that couldn't afford to have a tournament at places like DE Turf, there were a lot of people. And the folks who were helping run it and all the volunteers who, were supposed to clean up the trash. It was so late. I don't know if you know this, but there were kids from Virginia waiting to play on Sunday night. It was at 11 o'clock at night, and there were still 2 games remaining. So what I did was I contacted Delaware State. They agreed to open up Wesley at 11 o'clock at night. The other problem was there was a shortage of officials. So I had to run home with my 2 kids. Wife was not there at the time. Put on my officiating uniform and referee a game between the DMV Knights of down in Virginia and the Newcastle Jags at Wesley College. So by the time I got done, it was close to 1 o'clock. And probably just like most of the other folks, it was raining. People just wanted to go home, but that left the next morning when I came to check up on things, I was not happy. So before you had already called, you guys were getting calls, because I saw the people stopping, taking pictures, and so And yeah, I was upset. So, yeah, took care of it. But what I did learn from that is that there has to be a cleanup crew like on deck, even if it's middle of the night, or at least 6 o'clock the next morning. So that was a lesson learned, but I would just say that the experience was amazing. We had the #1 team on the East Coast, 7th and 8th graders playing right at the Field of Dreams, the Maryland Heat. 7th graders and 8th graders with 12 Division I college scholarships playing here in Delaware, playing against the Virginia Colts. That was a big game with nationally ranked teams right here in Kent County. So the hotels, there were people, the hotels were booked from Newcastle all the way downstate with kids. And it was a pretty good experience. So the trash part, I'll work that out. I think I have it worked out.
Commissioner Maston.
Yeah, Mr. Gunn, just one suggestion. You may want to look at violation probation group. We used them in Smyrna for July 4th cleanup after the fireworks. You can reach out to me after the meeting. I can give you a contact number. If you have a schedule when you're going to have your games, if you work with the DOC in Smyrna, they can send you a crew. The only thing they ask you to do is give them something to drink and some snacks. But they do an excellent job cleaning up, and you don't have to do it.
Sold, yeah. I don't know if you guys remember baby Sasha, my 3-year-old, but yeah, I don't like her seeing run around help her dad pick up trash, but we do what we have to do. But that's a great suggestion. Something else I just to point out that you guys will probably all be proud of is we're going to host the first annual Juneteenth Festival at the Field of Dreams, statewide event weekend with vendors and just showcasing Black excellence in history in Delaware. So that could kind of be pretty big for the Field of Dreams. And that's going to be a fundraiser for the youth sports programs. So we'll have a big music act, nothing like Firefly, but it'll be the first time that there's been a Juneteenth festival in Delaware of this size, for sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Gunn or for Mr. Rigby? All right, seeing none. Thanks, gentlemen. So Mr. Shepard, the Director of Community Services, has 2 motions that he's recommending. Mr. Shepard's recommendation is to end the service to the Field of Dreams at the end of the 2023 season. At this time, I'm not willing to make that decision, but I would like to go with the second motion, which is to continue it through the 2023 season, but add a line that says we will revisit this in December of 2023. Like I said, give you an opportunity to come back and talk to us. If things are 3 times what they are now and you've got volunteers who are willing to step up and cut the grass, if not, I think that $3,700 a year and 4.5 hours a week is not going to hurt us that much. So, any questions? Move this forward to the business meeting. 5 up. Okay. Any public comment on this issue? Any public comment? Anybody online, Mr. Kennedy?
We have no members from the public online at this time.
No members from the public. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Lamar. Appreciate it.
Just go put that out in the car so I don't have to see it, okay?
I'm going to leave this in the lobby.
All right, next item on the agenda is Public Works Committee. Commissioner Howe is the chair. I'll turn the committee over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll ask Ms. Gold to come up, and we'll talk about the request preserve of county-owned natural area.
Commissioner Howe, if I may, while Diana's at the seat, tee this one up since it came through me. Diana hadn't been involved with it.
Definitely need to let Mike take the lead.
Pardon me?
Definitely need to let you take the lead.
Yeah. So the reason this is under the Public Works Committee is because the property that we're talking about was purchased by the sewer fund, the enterprise fund. But we have some guests with us tonight from the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control and the Kent County Conservancy. If they want to join us at the table. And while they're coming forward, Chaz Salkin is with us, and he will introduce his guest. It doesn't look like Miss Parks, but someone else. And I see Miss Parks out in the audience there. Anyway, so the request that's you're going to hear about tonight, and I think they have a little brief presentation I'm going to show you. The county purchased what we know as the Dover Products site, which was a rendering plant on Denny's Road, and it was purchased over about 10 years ago with the idea of establishing a central septage receiving station, because we have a force main that runs through there now called the Central Bypass North that kind of traverses the northern part of this property, and it was a very good location for a tie-in to that force main. We haven't done the central septage receiving station to date. The property is about 14, almost 15 acres in area, and roughly half of it is wooded wetland, maybe a little more than half of it. And I think, I know this is the portion of the property that the group that's before you is interested in preserving for a variety of environmental and ecological reasons. And at this point, I'm going to turn the floor over. Diana, you want me to turn it to you first, and then, or directly to Mr. Salkin? And
Yeah.
Melanie first.
Okay. I'll turn it over to our guests. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Cucinato. I am the Natural Areas Nature Preserves Program Manager with the Division of Parks and Recreation. Please bear with me. I'm 31 weeks pregnant, and I'm also recovering from a sinus infection, so if I am kind of breathy, I'm fine. I just might have to take an extra breath or two. So we're here to talk to you guys today about the Fork Branch preservation. I do have a presentation. I'm not sure if we can pull that up or not, but I do have handouts for you that I can give you at the end so that you have something to take home. Yeah.
Mark, did you want to give her the remote? Thank you.
Self-explanatory. Alrighty. So the Fork Branch preservation is what we're here to talk to you all about today. So getting started, kind of just a background, within the Division of Parks and Recreation, there's the Land Preservation Office. This office oversees three major programs. There's the Open Space Program, which coordinates acquisitions of land for the Division of Parks and Recreation, the Division of Fish and Wildlife, as well as Forestry, and the Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs. So the Open Space Program is to expand those state parks, preserves, fish and wildlife areas, the forests, and the cultural resources for the betterment of future generations of Delawareans, to make sure that these places in our landscape stay protected. To date, we have protected 37,938 acres for parks alone. That's not even including what has been preserved for the other three divisions. So just to give you some perspective on that, we have the Natural Areas Preservation Program, which is the program that I am in charge of. Chaz has also been an alumni of that program and all of these programs as well. The Natural Areas Preservation Program identifies areas of ecological, historic, cultural, geological significance in the state, and it enables landowners to be active land stewards. It's a voluntary process to take those lands and then dedicate them as nature preserve. Today, Parks manages 7,272 acres of nature preserve. We have 34 total within the state. And lastly, I wanted to highlight the Parks Conservation Easement Program. So this program will allow landowners to preserve land and also retain ownership of that land. It is simply an easement that is It goes through the process of selling or donating the development rights to the state, making sure that that property stays protected, but still the landowner can retain the ownership of that land. And today, Parks holds 116 easements, totaling 3,880 acres of eased land. And here are the fine folks from the Land Preservation Office. Little shout out for Carrie Petroni. She is not here today in the audience. She just actually is starting to transition into the open space program. Her first day with us is on the 19th, so that's very exciting. And hopefully you'll get to find out more about her. Laura Parks is in the audience today. She takes care of our conservation easements and our land records. And then there's me, Melanie. I do natural areas, nature preserves. That's actually me hugging a tree at the Fork Branch. So very passionate about preserving our land. And just to highlight the fine folks at Kent County Conservancy who are with us today, we have Lyle Jones, who's in the audience as well, the president of the Conservancy. We have Charles Salkin, who was a past president. And I have Jack Foley on here solely because I took some of his photos from their website. I just wanted to make sure that you guys all knew I wasn't a professional wildlife photographer and that some of these photos are from him. But he is no longer associated with the Conservancy, but just giving him a shout out for the photos. And with that, next slide, I'm gonna have Chaz talk a little bit about the Conservancy. And you can read on there, that is their mission statement.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm very pleased, proud to represent the Kent County Conservancy. I know some of you from my previous life as the director of state parks, and it was a pleasure working with you, and I'm glad to be back with several of you that I've worked with before, especially the president, Mr. Pepper. It's good to see you, Terry. The Kent County Conservancy is over a dozen years old. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're a conservancy. Some people know us as a land trust. Our objective is to work in Kent County. We're a board of directors working with individual property owners voluntarily to do what we can to preserve open space in Kent County. Obviously, government has a major role, state government in particular, Kent County government. There are other nonprofit organizations that are national in scope, like the Nature Conservancy. We are like all of them, but on a smaller scale and on a local scale. And we're taking a look, in many cases, at properties that aren't on the radar of some of the larger organizations or agencies. There's a lot of land that needs to be protected and properly managed, and we're doing our best to find a niche for ourselves to be able to be part of that process. Until recently, most of our efforts had been advocacy. And thankfully, we've been very successful at that. You'll be hearing from Mel in just a minute about success on the Fork Branch, the upper branch of the St. John's River, just north of Silver Lake. Through our efforts with direct landowner contacts, we were able to secure 2 small wetland donations to add to the Fork Branch Nature Preserve at McClemont's Woods. And also through our direct negotiations and assistance to Delaware State Parks, we were able to help Parks secure a roughly 40-acre addition to the McClemont's Woods area. So that's now part of the Nature Preserve and part of the state park system. We have no money. We have less money than Mr. Gunn. But we have been able to help leverage money for a lot of projects. Most significantly, I'm sure many of you have been to the trail at the McClemont's Woods parcel on Kenton Road. We secured the first $100,000 toward that trail project. So that was all through advocacy. More recently, and I should say that the Fork Branch is our priority area in the county, or at least had been until the last year when we've started working on preserving land, forested wetlands between Route 1 and Route 9, just east of Dover Downs. We've received 2 donations, one of 31 acres and one, I think it was maybe even today, of an additional 15 acres. So we're getting close to 50 acres of forested land, and it's part of a 250 to 300 acre forested block, and we hope that we can be successful in preserving the entire 300 acres. Protecting large blocks of forest is a high priority for everyone in the natural resources business. So we're here tonight really in support of our partner, DENREC, Division of Parks and Recreation, as they make their case to you for why you should voluntarily participate in this natural areas program on the Fork Branch and add to the successes of the state, of the Lenape tribe, of the Conservation Fund, and of our conservancy, and continue to grow the Fork Branch Nature Preserve. Thanks for having us.
So a little bit about the Natural Areas Preservation Program. So the General Assembly passed Delaware Code Title 7, Chapter 73, which is the Natural Areas Preservation System. So it is codified. It was done in 1978. It followed a book called The Delaware's Outstanding Natural Areas and Their Preservation by Lorraine Fleming. Highly suggest that book if you have not seen it or read it. It outlines 101 sites throughout the state that are worthy of protection within the state, and it was published by Delaware Nature Society. A little shout out there. But the code allowed for 4 key things. It established the governor-appointed Natural Areas Advisory Council. This council convenes quarterly to discuss matters of natural areas, nature preserves. They're advisory to the Secretary of DENREC, and they do recommendations on which properties should be added to the natural areas list, as well as reviewing dedication documents for the nature preserves. It established the Office of Nature Preserves, which is me. It codified my position, making sure that within the Division of Parks and Recreation, there will always be a person that is managing, maintaining, keeping track of these nature preserves and making sure that they are, not being destroyed in any way, and making sure that there's advocacy there. It created the Registry of Natural Areas, or the Natural Areas Inventory. Those two terms are kind of hand in hand. They mean the same thing. Just keeping up a list of the natural areas within the state and their boundaries. And it also allowed for the process for landowners to dedicate land within the boundaries of natural areas as nature preserve. So that one's important to understand, because if a land is not identified as natural area, it cannot be dedicated as nature preserve. The preservation program preserves lands that are natural area. But that's not to say that land cannot become natural area. That all goes through the council at their quarterly meetings. And I'm not going to read these definitions word for word. The most important thing that you get out of this slide is that natural areas are non-regulatory. They're more of an identification tool for DENREC, for other land preservation professionals, for the counties, for municipalities. It's more of a way to say, hey, this land that you might own or that you might be planning development next to is identified as natural area, meaning that it does hold ecological value, historical value, geologic value. But again, that is not regulatory at the state level. Counties and municipalities are able to go further and put any ordinance that they feel is necessary. Newcastle County does have a critical natural area in their Unified Development Code, but again, that's up to county and municipality government. And nature preserves are important because they place deed restrictions on the property. So it's the highest level of protection, and kind of the difference between the two is that nature preserves are regulatory at that point. So some shout outs with the Kent County Conservancy and the news. And this slide is really just to show you guys how far back work has been done for the Fork Branch. We have news articles from 2019 and 2020, and those conversations even go back further than that, for protection of the Fork Branch. So it has been a long time coming that these conversations have been going on. And excuse me, every time that we see additions to the Fork Branch, it's always publicly well received, because the Fork Branch is the only nature preserve within the state that is in city limits. And because of that, it is providing a very big resource to the people of the city as a place to go to kind of escape and get lost in the woods, if you will. So just wanted to shout out how the Kent County Conservancy has really worked hard to try and get some of this land preserved. So to bring up the maps now, this is a kind of zoomed out picture of where we're talking about. So the 2003 parcel, that is the largest one. That's where you're going to be finding that 1 mile loop if you've ever been there. And then I have the dates on there so that you can kind of see when those acquisitions were happening and where in relation the Kent County parcel is. So the Kent County parcel is in yellow, and all of the other state land is in green. So you can kind of see it's up at the north, the north area of the map, and how it kind of connects. The striped area is the most recent acquisition that happened with the Lenape tribe, and that we have a conservation easement. Parks has a conservation easement on that land. And to get a bit closer to the property that is in question, like I said, the Kent County property is in yellow, and the static that you see that is kind of overlaid on the map is the Fork Branch natural area. So it's only 2.33 acres of the parcel itself is natural area. And like I said, only natural area can be dedicated as nature preserve. So I hope that answers some questions and mitigates a little bit. But you can see kind of how this also plays in the grand scheme of where the Lenape tribe lands are, Delaware State Parks lands, and the natural area. And I can always come back to that if we have discussion time and everything. So, how to preserve natural area. There's really two different ways that we could do this. If you wanted to maintain ownership of the entirety of the parcel, your best bet would to be placing a conservation easement on the natural area. So a conservation easement is legally binding to protect the conservation values in perpetuity, and the restrictions and permitted uses on the land are written with the landowner. It's not something that Parks will hand you and say, here, this is what needs to happen. No, these restrictions it's an open conversation between the landowner and us and, whoever else is involved. Or there is outright donation, pretty self-explanatory. So you could outright donate the natural area portion of the parcel that is not going to be utilized. Or you could do a situation like what just recently happened with the Lenape and modeled by the Conservation Fund parcel, which is across the street from the Kent County parcel, which is to donate the land with the conservation easement on it already with Parks, and donating the land to a conservation agency like the Lenape Tribe of Delaware or Kent County Conservancy, just examples. So those are options. And then any questions? I have our contact information there. If you think of anything outside of tonight that you might have follow-up questions for. And you have the printout, so you'll have all of our emails and everything. But I will go back to the zoomed in picture for if there's any discussion.
I would just like to add one thing, and that is that the preservation of these lands that you see on the map, they're colored in the various colors, preserved by state agencies and by nonprofit organizations, is the result of many years of effort of the nonprofits and DNREC through landowner contacts, meeting with individual owners and trying to convince them to, first telling them what's important about their property, and then trying to get them to be the most responsible managers of the property they can, to protect what's important that's there, and to get them thinking about getting higher levels of protection on the land. And as you look at this mosaic of colors here, you'll see properties that came through subdivision, properties that came through donation, properties that came through purchase by conservation organizations, properties like the one in yellow that was purchased not for conservation purposes, but has potential for that. And there is land that has been bought by the state. And there is land that's been bought by the state at radical bargain sale, the McClements property being the best example, where a roughly $5 million property was sold to the state at half price. So there are all kinds of different ways to preserve land and different types of owners. And so in addition to what you see here today that's been protected, in addition to talking to you, our conservancy right now is engaged with in conversations with about 6 or 7 other property owners in this immediate area, from Del State and Del Tech to private individuals. So the objective overall would be to have all those areas that are stippled in white that look like they've been snowed on, to get all of those protected at the highest level possible. And each one will have its own unique circumstances, and each one will have different prescriptions for how to do that. One of the things that the county could do here, in addition to dedicating the land to be part of this process, would be to help set an example for neighbors so that we can continue our success up and down the stream.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your commitment, your expertise. I'm sure you could be doing other things besides being here talking to us, but we appreciate you coming out. And before the commissioners have the opportunity to ask questions or make comments, I thought I'd let Diana just say whatever.
As Mike mentioned, we acquired the property as part of the sewer fund for the purposes of central septic receiving. One of the items I haven't, that we did not cover tonight is the property, before we purchased it, it was entered into the Denrick Brownsfield program. And a lot of testing and investigation was done of the site so that we could understand what may have impacted it prior to our ownership due to the nature of the industry that was there. Some of the things that were found is that in the back half of the property, there is an area, not in the wetland, just outside of the natural area, which had been filled, and some of the fill was not clean. So in addition, so that was right before the woods line at the, you see where the buildings are? Just at the edge of the southern part of that, right before the woods line. And in the part north of the building that you see in the yellow area, that area also had some testing come up with problems. So part of my investigation before we further the preservation of this area is to make sure we understand any obligations we have related to that Brownsfield program that we were in, as well as making sure we can proceed with our project. And in addition, preserve that force main that's there. So I just wanted to put those notes out there. I think it's a great idea to conserve natural areas, but we also want to make sure we can serve those other needs that the county has.
Understood. Mr. Sweeney, I believe, had a comment or question.
Thanks. Ms. Gold, is there any requirement for us to maintain ownership?
I would assume that in the area that we're going to be operating in, we're going to have to maintain that ownership. That being that northern part of the property. I also need to understand with the Brownsfield program whether there are any obligations that we have because of the money we received for those investigations, if we have to continue ownership, or if there's ways that allow us to partner and add on to the measures that are required by the Brownsfield program with additional conservancy.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Hey, Mike.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. For Melanie Cucinato, am I saying that right? And for your colleague in the audience, Ms. Parks. We do a lot of work with DNREC managing a regional wastewater facility. And I may not get another opportunity to kind of float this idea. It's, it's not my original idea, actually. A member of our staff suggested that we explore this, whether or not there's any benefit, or could there be some benefit to inure to the county with respect to other activities with DNREC, such as some type of credit for engaging in this agreement to preserve or to provide an easement. Would there be something in exchange for the easement that the county might benefit from, such as a credit for whatever, nutrient management or some other aspect of the regulatory issues related to managing a wastewater facility? Just throwing it as an idea that maybe there's some quid pro quo here, easement in exchange for some other benefit to the regional wastewater facility.
Yeah. So let me just collect some thoughts here. So there is the nutrient program with watershed stewardship that we could talk to definitely and see where that might fit in with their goals. I know that this being a previous brown site and going the extra mile to preserve it as nature preserve, because if you see in the definition of the natural areas need not be undisturbed. So I don't want that to be it being a previous brownfield, I don't want that to be something negative with a negative connotation. Natural areas do have the opportunity in their definition to become naturalized again, even after being hurt in the past. So definitely watershed stewardship would be a good spot to investigate some things that we can do. I know that the city of Dover also has their MS4 permit, so this might follow suit with some of the requirements of that permit to help mitigate, stormwater and making sure that there stays, forested wetland to soak up some of the residual materials that might be on the land. And for wastewater, for that regional wastewater, we can always talk to the Division of Water about what kind of programs they might have available as well with the NIPDES permit. So that's just off the top of my head. There is definite benefits within the different divisions. Another benefit with conservation easements is you'll see in the slides that you're selling or donating the development rights. So if it goes the route of selling the development rights, you're getting a payout for that, and that money can then be used for further protection of that nature preserve that you place on the land. Or it could be used for brownfield things, or that's kind of up to you guys on how you'd want to spend that, but it just is a matter of kind of how you want to go, what decisions you guys make. So, and that goes through the open space program.
One thing I would add, probably the most important thing to remember about this program is that it's voluntary. Mm-hmm. So when you think about whether or not you want to do it, you have to decide you want to do it. There's no one at DNREC or anywhere who can tell you you have to. And then the other beauty of it is that there are some basic requirements for what constitutes a nature preserve dedication. But beyond those basic elements, everything else can be negotiated between the Office of Nature Preserve staff and the county. So if there are concerns about brownfields, if there are concerns about the continued usability of the site for its intended purpose, or for some other purpose in the future, or if there are concerns about the maintenance of the force lines, those sorts of things, those all can be addressed in the Nature Preserve dedication document to make sure that as the land is being preserved as a nature preserve, it's also can continue to be managed by the county for its intended purposes without unduly tying your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. Ms. Galt. This land was bought with enterprise money from our sewer district, correct?
Correct. It was bought with sewer fund money.
Okay. One of the things that I have learned in my 18 years being here is dealing with disasters and water and flooding and coastal flooding and sea level rise and all those things that people are saying. Our inlands seem to go by the wayside sometimes, and this is one of them. And I like the idea. The only thing I'd like to propose, though, is that a retaining wall be able to be put on to save the higher ground from slipping from heavy rains and more flooding, so it doesn't slip into the wetlands. I think that we need to make sure that the higher ground is what we need to preserve so that we can utilize the area for what we need for our wastewater storage and whatever else is there. Is that a problem?
No, there are a lot of preserves that.
Please use your mic.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think that would be a problem. There are other preserves that have erosion type problems where written within the documents it says, you can't dredge or you can't excavate, but if there's a stabilization problem, obviously we need to take care of that. So there is language that can get put into these documents where that can be addressed. And I don't think that would be a problem.
There's also a simple solution, which is that assuming that this land were to be dedicated as a nature preserve, there would be the equivalent of a subdivision of the property. There would be the easement or the nature preserve dedication would be only on the wetland portion or the natural areas portion and would not apply to the usable land. So the county you would simply have the option of drawing that line that separates the natural area from the public works portion in a way that ensures that you would retain the right to do whatever you want outside of the dedicated area. And you could build a retaining wall, you could put up buildings, you could really do anything you want because a nature preserve dedication only applies to the portion of the property that has the deed restrictions placed on it and doesn't speak to what happens on the other side of the line. So that's a decision you could simply make yourselves as you decide where to draw that line.
Mm-hmm. Well, Levy Court's great at partnering. That's what we do. And so I would want to say to my fellow commissioners that what I think we should do is keep the ownership and then give the easement, because it was paid with sewer money, and that way we form a partnership, and you take care of the wetlands, we'll take care of the higher ground.
Well, thank you again for being here, and Levy Court will not be taking any action tonight. I don't think you're expecting it anyway, but this will be revisited sometime, possibly early spring, possibly, and some rudimentary research has to be done and some other things. So we'll see you then. All right. Thank you very much. Drive safely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Are there any public comments? Seeing none, Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll reconvene to the business meeting. Go back to old business. Commissioner Angel, Levy Court action item from November 29th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any questions on this gentleman? Mr. Sweeney, Commissioner Sweeney.
I thought we had decided to hold this off until January when the two new commissioners were going to be here. Or is that something?
No, that was not the meeting. Well, I'll let Mr. Pettermaj explain what we said.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Sweeney, thanks for the question. On November 29th, staff presented information that we gathered from our meeting on the 15th. Right before Thanksgiving, we had a meeting where we reviewed the entire ARPA program and the previously established priorities. Gina Beinfeld was here and went over that with us as well. And then we vowed from that meeting to report back to you at the next meeting, which was the 29th of November after Thanksgiving, what was discussed. And there were 4 things that came out of that meeting. One was this idea of establishing budgets around several of the priorities that were previously identified, not specific projects, but a budget for each. And so what we reported on the 29th, we agreed at the end of that, there was a unanimous consent at the dais, but we did not have a motion at that time. And we said we would bring a motion back to formalize it. And that was to establish the following budget, taking $8 million in ARPA money and establishing a budget for stormwater projects in the amount of $2 million, project specifics to be defined, working with our Department of Planning Services and the Kent Conservation District. The second aspect was $4 million for wastewater system projects with the Public Works Department under Diana Galt, bringing forward those projects at a future time on this, how to specifically use that money. The third was to establish a fund to create a grant program for civic organizations, and we recommended $1 million. So that's in this motion. And the fourth part was regarding county building ventilation systems. And I reminded everyone on the 29th that in the current year budget, we budgeted $85,000 to do studies and monitor our air quality within our buildings. And Mr. Vasquez is pursuing the development of an RFP right now for that purpose. And the $1 million would be then to execute on what the findings are from the monitoring. And then the last aspect, and this may be what you're remembering, Commissioner Sweeney, is that there was tentative agreement here to do a second prioritization process after the new year, after the new commissioners are seated. And so that's the last part of this recommended motion. But this is what was reported on the 29th, and now it's put forward as a motion to formalize it. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, I move to appropriate a total of $8 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding to be apportioned and utilized for the following purposes. Stormwater management drainage projects, establish a project budget of $2 million. B, wastewater system improvement projects, establish a project budget of $4 million. C, civic organizations grant program, establish a project budget of $1 million. D, county building ventilation system improvements, establish a project budget of $1 million. And I further move to direct staff in conjunction with our ARPA's consultant, Tetra Tech, Incorporate, to develop and conduct a second ARPA prioritization process in January 2023 for Levy Court to review and evaluate previously identified priorities, along with new ideas that may be offered for the purpose of establishing the next phase of ARPA priorities for 2023.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Angel, second by Commissioner Masson. Do any of the commissioners have any questions before we go to vote? I don't see any. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals the action item has been approved. New business. The first item under Commissioner Angel was previously removed from the agenda. The next item under Commissioner Sweeney, you have 2 items there, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to have park maintenance staff continue to cut grass at Field of Dreams for the upcoming 2023 calendar year on weekly intervals during the growing season as weather permits, and to include a future review of this service annually in December for budgeting purposes.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sweeney. I believe it was second by Commissioner Hall. Okay. Approve. Any questions? See, now can we have roll call on that, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals the motion passed. Item number 2.
Thanks, sir. Gentlemen, last week I made the suggestion that we consider $500,000 in addition to the $1 million that we gave the Food Bank of Delaware from our ARPA funds. This $500,000 would be from the unrestricted reserves, a special capital project grant. And it was considered whether or not it would come from contingency, which Ms. Durham suggested is we could not do or should not do, and or come from the county's $10 million in funds that were moved at the beginning of our ARPA system when we first started ARPA. But to me, those ARPA funds are just being passed through from the federal government. That's not really our funds. So my suggestion was $500,000 from the unrestricted reserves to commit to the Food Bank of Delaware, to their program, to what they provide to Kent County and to Delaware as a whole. I have a motion if everybody's in agreement with that.
Sure.
I'm sorry, is there any reason why this wouldn't be considered a Project 30?
Me to answer that?
Munch.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Maston. It could be a Policy 30 or Community Projects Assistance Grant. However, I advocated to go this direction because right now the Policy 30 grant fund has about $514,000 in it. And this would be a major depletion of that fund if we took $500,000 out of it. And we've been using the Projects Assistance Fund periodically throughout every year since we've created it for projects that just happen to come along that we're not aware of at the outset of a budget year or whatever, but there are compelling projects and you all want to support them. That's really the reason it was created to begin with. We saw a frequency of really good community projects coming forward. Every time one came forward, we were like, well, where are we going to get the money from? So we created a fund, but we have a little over $500,000 in it. By policy, the maximum you put on yourself to put in it in any given year is $150,000, and that's part of the policy. So even if you took $500,000 out, you can only put a maximum of $500 or $150,000 back in, and that's if the surpluses support it. That coupled by the fact that the fund balance that we have, the unrestricted fund balance, could certainly accommodate this.
Just one further question. If we do this, is this a precedent we're setting? Or if it is, could we be opening ourselves up for other groups to come in to ask for the same thing? And would there be a chance where we would deny those and have discriminatory practices as a possibility?
No, I really don't think, because I believe the precedent has been set many, many years ago. We've done many grants. Before the Policy 30 grant program or grant fund was even established, we would get large requests, and some Levy Court would support and some you wouldn't. I think back to the Dover Library. That could have been viewed as a precedent, but you offered $1 million for that project, and it was understood that was a special project that Levy Court wanted to support. It did not create a parade of people coming in here asking for $1 million. We've supported DASEF several different times in its journey to completion, and with major grants, what I would consider major grants from Levy Court. So I don't think that would create a concern. I'd be more concerned with running low in the Policy 30 fund, and then a good project comes along and you only have $14,000 left in the fund.
Any other questions? Commissioner Angel.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off Mr. Maston. Is it possible to take the unrestricted funds to put back in then for the Project 30, since that's what it was mainly designed for, just for transparency and cleanliness of how we do things? I see it both ways, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, but right now, the way the policy is written, the maximum you can put in any given budget year is $150,000. So you'd have to change the policy, which you can do. But at what point does it appear to be just a shell game and you're moving money around? So I think you've got the money in the unrestricted fund balance. If you believe this is a special project that you want to support in a major way, without depleting the other fund that you created for those projects that come along, things like, grants to Bowers Beach Museum or grants to the state police to build a sign, or, there have been a number of uses of the smaller uses of the project assistance fund that, Park in Farmington, you supported. A clock in Clayton. I could list probably 25 projects that you supported with that came along that we didn't know about, but we knew that they were going to come along and we just were ready for them. I think it'd be disappointing if you depleted that with one project and then, had a problem when a really good project comes along and you didn't have the money to do it.
Well, I know you're retiring on us, Mr. Pettimage, but maybe we can put this on the agenda, not agenda, but for the retreat for discussion to look at the policy. Maybe we might want to make some tweaking. I know you won't be here, but I think Mr. Coelho will be running that meeting, but that's something I think we need to look at all our policies, but since we can only do so much at a time, I think it needs to be brought up and looked at least. So just wanted to get it on record. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Pettimage. Not to belabor this, but wasn't Policy 30 supposed to be benefiting toward municipalities originally?
Well, it may have been part of the impetus. It's not written to only benefit municipalities. It's just non-county owned capital projects that Levy Court determines are of a significant public value. So, but most of those grants are less than $100,000. They tend to be 40, 30, 50,000, not 500,000.
Right. Mr. President, I'm ready to make a motion.
Sir.
Thank you. I move to award the Food Bank of Delaware with a special capital project grant in the amount of $500,000 for the express and limited purpose of providing a monetary contribution from Kent County toward the cost of constructing the new Food Bank of Delaware facility currently under construction in Milford, Kent County, Delaware, with the source of funding being the Kent County unrestricted fund balance. And I furthermore move that said grant be presented by Levy Court to representatives of the Food Bank of Delaware during the Levy Court business meeting of Tuesday, January 17th, 2023.
Second motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Sweeney, second by Commissioner Angel. Any questions on that motion? I don't see any. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Absolutely.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals the motion passed. Thank you, folks, and thank you. The next item on the agenda was removed because the action item was removed from the agenda during the presentation. That'll be heard later on. Is there a need for executive session this evening? All right. All right, then, with that being said, there's no reason to do the first item there under other business. Information items from the commissioners. Any information items? Any public comments? Any public comments on the issues we talked about tonight? I see none. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Maston.
Just a reminder, the Kent County Fire Chiefs meetings at 7 p.m. tomorrow night in Lipsick. All are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And any other commissioner comments? Don't see any. Need a motion to adjourn.
Just one real quick.
All right.
Since you're going away,
Huh?
you won't be here next week.
Correct.
You and your family have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you. And Merry Christmas to all of you. And Mike, I'm sorry I'm going to miss your last official meeting of Levy Court after all these years. So I'm sorry, really am sorry I'm going to miss that. But depending on where I am, I may call in.
That would be very nice of you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Angel, second by Commissioner Sweeney. All in favor, aye. Opposed? Nope. We are adjourned.